Good day everyone, I am Sir Jerickson Chua and this is Animation 2. So before we start our session for today, may I request all of you to please bow your head as we feel the presence of our Lord through a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hello and welcome to Animation 2. So for today, we're going to discuss on how to add special effects on Macromedia Flash or Adobe Flash. So on this topic, we're going to discuss on how to use a filter, blend mode, the different timeline effects such as transform and transition. So how do we define a filter? So filters in your Flash movies can add visual effects and alter the appearance of your movies. So you may add a blur to an animated graphic that moves across the screen, or you can also add filter to text, movie clips, and buttons. You can also use it on different motion twinning in applying a filter. You can use the filters panel in the properties inspector to add and manage filters you assign. Okay? And aside from that, you can also assign multiple filters to create unique looking on your movie object. So how do we now create filters in Macromedia Flash? Okay, so let's have this example. So let's create a circle here. Okay, and using this object, we can use the different filters, but we need to convert it first into a symbol. So click F8, and then we're going to rename this as circle. And then click OK. Now we can see now the filter option. So we can click the plus button and we have here the different filter options. So we have the drop shadow, the blur, glow, bevel, gradient glow, gradient bevel, and adjust color. So drop shadow, it creates a shadow to your symbol. So you can also adjust the blur in X direction and Y direction. So just like your Cartesian plane, we have here your X-intercept and we have your Y-intercept. So that's the use of the blur X and your Y. Okay, so you can also change the color of that drop shadow on the color that you want. You can change the blur of it and so on. You can also adjust the angle, the distance, the quality, and so on. We can also take this several options. So you can use the knockout to remove the color of the inside. You can also use the inner shadow so that you can place the shadow inside. You can also use the hide object so that you can just use the shadow. You can also tick the tree so that you can create this kind of effect. So that's the use of the drop shadow. Okay, let's now remove this filter and proceed to another one. You can also use the blur. So the blur option will blur your object. Okay, as you can see, when I move the X blur, it follows with the Y blur. So that's how you use that. Okay. Next, we also have here the glow. Okay, you can also change the glow options. Okay, you can change that. You can also use the knockout or the inner glow so that you can create those kind of effects. Next, we also have here your bevel. Okay, it creates a bevel design on your object. You can also use the knockout. Okay, just placing the bevel here there. Also change the shadow effect and so on. Okay, gradient glow. You also have your gradient bevel, and we have adjust colors. Okay, so adjust colors, you can adjust the color of your symbol. Okay, so as I said a while ago, you can also place multiple filter in one object. So that's how you use filters in Macromedia Flash. Okay, next, let's proceed to the next one, which is applying a blend mode. So you can use a blend mode to create a composite image of your Flash movie. When you create a composite, you modify the transparency or color interaction of two or more overlapping clips. For example, you must place a nearly transparent movie clip over to create a new visual effect. With more than a dozen blend modes to try, you can create a variety of unique looks for your project. Okay, so we have here different blend modes. Okay, so we have darken, multiply, lighten, screen, overlay, hard light, invert, alpha, and erase. So those are your different blend modes. Okay. So before that, by the way, I'll just present to you an example of an implementation of using filters. So I will be creating here a circle, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to blur it on the 15th frame. So what you're going to do is to create a circle, convert it into a symbol, and then go to frame 15, insert keyframe, and then move it here, and you're going to use the filter, and we're going to blur your object. Okay, and then we can just use your motion tween to create that blur effect. So when we control enter, the output will be just like this one. So that's an implementation of a filter using your Macromedia Flash. So aside from blur, we can also use it to remove tween first. Change this into, remove that, create a glow. Let's create a glow so that it will have a glowing action. Okay, so go back here and then insert tween, which is the motion tween, so that when we move from one place to another, it creates a glowing effect. Okay, so that's how you use our filters. Okay, let's proceed to your blend mode. Click OK. So how do we do blending? So what you're going to do now is, okay, on a movie clip, we just create, okay, Control F3 to see your blend mode. Okay, let's have this example and then convert this into a movie clip. So as you can see here, we have here a properties inspector and your symbol. So just click the symbol and then the blend mode will appear here. So we have here your layer. Okay, we have darken, which compares the background and foreground colors, gives the darker effect. We have multiply, the base color, and blend the color. Lighten, compares the background and foreground colors that gives the lighter effect. Screen, blend colors of multiple base colors and inverted. Overlay, multiplies the color based on the base color. Hard light, invert, alpha, and erase. So usually what we use is the alpha. So when we use the alpha, it creates an action that creates a clear object. So if you want to create that shape from one color to disappearing mode, you can just use this blend mode. Okay, the alpha. Okay, so darken, we have multiply. As you can see, nothing happens. But when you use this to the several movie clips, when you will be incorporating some in your animation, you can use this blend mode later on. Okay, next, let's proceed to the different timeline effects. So timeline effects, can be added quickly and easy animate to objects of your document. For example, you can add a drop shadow or blur to a graphic object or shapes in your movie, depending on the effect that you assign. Okay, so we have here timeline effects. So let's create a new file. Okay, and then let's create this. Okay, double click, and we have here timeline effects. So we have two types of timeline effects. So we have here your effects, and we have the transform and transition. The assistants will just be used for several occasions, but we'll focus on the different effects. So we have here the blur, the drop shadow, expand and explode, transform and transition. So what is the transform effect? So it can add an instant animation effect to an object using the transform effect. For example, you might make an object change to transparency depending on the effect that you want to create. You can also use this for controlling the position, the scale, the rotation, spinning, transparency, and so on. So let's use the transform effect. Okay, transform, click transform. So you can change this, okay, option if you want to change the position, okay, by changing the pixel. So for example, we want to move it to the right, so let's add 50, I guess, 50, not 550. Or we can also rotate it several times, so 5 rotations. I know, no, I can just 10 rotations. Okay, and then let's preview. Okay, so that's the transform effect. So we can rotate it this way. Let's just change the spin position to 20 spins. Okay, let's just update that. Okay, so using the transform effect, you can do the spinning option. Okay, click OK, and then Control Enter, and then that's how you create a spinning effect. Okay, that's how you use the transform option. Another one is your transition. So you can use this with similar with with Microsoft PowerPoint. So let's create a new file. Let's use a circle this time. Double click, right click, and then we have here your transition. Okay, so it can be a fade, a wipe, or putting in or out, slow at end, and so on. So we can just use this and update. So let's use the wipe effect going to the right, or you can use it going upward. You can also use the fade effect so that it fades while it wipes. So click OK and then Control Enter, and that's how you use the transition effect in Macromedia Flash. For the other timeline effect, let's have this example, a circle, and then we just need to double click this, right click, and we're going to use now the different effects. So you can use the blur option, okay, if you want to create a blurring effect on your animation. So you can change the duration. We can just change this to 5 and then update. Okay, the faster blurring. If you want to smoother, you can change this to 20. Smoother blur effect. Okay, you can also change the position of the blur. Okay, and then click OK. Let's see if it works. Control Enter. That's the blur effect using that particular effect in Macromedia Flash. Okay, next, Control New. Okay, let's try the other one. Double click, right click. Let's use the drop shadow effect. Okay, that's just drop shadow. Okay, click OK. Other effect, we can use the By the way, on effects, you can just use one effect at a time. So you can just remove the effect and then change that to another one. Okay, explode. Let's use the explode option. Okay, so you can create objects that explodes. So frame fragments, you can just change that. The final alpha can also be changed so that, okay, click OK, and then Control Enter. That's how you use the explode. By the way, when creating effects in Macromedia Flash, the more effects that you place on your Flash, um, the the file of your output is bigger and slower because you are using the pre-built effects that is based on your Flash. So the more effects that you place, the slower the effects will be. So it is much better to use motion tween or shape tween in creating your effects because it's smoother in transition, unlike the effects that is pre-built on your Macromedia Flash. So that is the different special effects that you can integrate on your Macromedia Flash or Adobe Flash in animation. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you have learned many things from our discussion. Keep safe and God bless.